Good day, everyone. I am Angeline P. De la Cruz, a third-year student taking up Bachelor of Science in Office Administration, studying in Negros Oriental State University, and I hope you will learn in this chapter. So with the group assigned Chapter 7, entitled Managing Stress and the Work-Life Balance. The objectives. In this chapter, you will able to define and describe the nature of stress, identify basic individual differences related to stress, identify and describe common causes of stress, discuss the central consequences of stress, describe various ways that stress can be managed, discuss work-life linkages and their relation to a stress. So stress is a feeling of emotion or psychological tension. It is a feeling of frustrated, anger, nervous, and etc. Many people think the word stress is a simple problem. But in reality, however, stress is complex or misunderstood. So let us talk about the nature of stress. Stress is a person's adaptive response to a stimulus that places excessive psychological or physical demands on that person. So, stress response includes psychological or physical thought response to a perception and the various situations. The word stimulus, generally called a stressor, is anything induced stress. So, stimulus, called a threat that causes stress. Example, death of our loved ones or losing our jobs and etc. The stress process. Dr. Hans Selye, a medical doctor, endocrinologist, and a researcher, claims the theory of general adaptation syndrome or GAS, and he identifies 3 stages of response to a stressor called the alarm, resistance, and exhaustion. So the explanation of the 3 stages. Alarm. At this point, the person may feel some degree of panic, begin to wonder how to cope. The individual may also have to receive a fight or flight questions like, can I deal with this or should I run away? In resistance, the second stage of the general adaptation syndrome, during the stage, the body has increased capacity to respond to the stressor. Due to the high energetic cost, the body cannot maintain high levels of resistance to a stress forever, and if the stressor persists, the body may advance rather into exhaustion. And last, exhaustion. At this stage, the person literally give up and can no longer fight the stressor. So the examples are, in alarm, being at a party but having social anxiety. The resistance of this, when others try to involve the socially anxious party guest, he experiences stress, perspiration, muscle tension, and increased heart rate. So the exhaustion, if the social anxiety is experienced often and over a long period of time, it can result in illness and disease such as coronary heart disease. So that's a result. So let's talk about the general adaptation syndrome GAS concept. So differentiate the eustress and distress. Eustress is the pleasurable stress that accompanies positive events. So like first day of school, first day in a work, or any other exciting moments. Includes positive. Distress is the unpleasant stress that accompanies negative events. So, opposite na siya sa eustress. These are the negative events happen in our life. So, next, individual differences and stress. Type E and B personality profile. So, these are the 2 cardiologists, Mayer Friedman and Ray Rosenman, observe the type A and B personality profile. So type A, people are extremely competitive, highly committed to work, and have a strong sense of time urgency. So these are the people who love to work, responsible, hardworking, and workaholic person. In type B, people are less competitive and have weaker sense of time urgency. So these are the people chill ra siya. Like wala dili magdali ba? Nginana gani kay dili magdali kay napay unya. So the examples, please take a look in this cartoon. So the type B, the chill one. So the type B is perming-gadali. So type B, slow down friend. Gadali siya kay oras na daw, pero ang type B, chill ra kay wala pa daw oras. So very sabotable ang personality profiles. Next is hardiness is a person's ability to cope with stress. So these are the people who never give up and to be strong of a stressful situations. Then optimism is the extent to which a person sees life in the relatively positive or negative terms. So this includes positive or negative. So the continuation of this chapter will be given to Lilette Villar.
Common causes of stress. Two broad categories of stress. Number one is organizational stressors, and the two is life stressors. And the three categories of stress consequences: individual consequences, organizational consequences, and the burnout. Organizational stressors are various factors in the workplace that can cause stress. There are four general sets of organization stressors. Number one is task demand, physical demand, role demand, and the last is interpersonal demand. Organizational stressors is task demand include by occupation, security, overload, and the physical demand include temperature, office design, and the role demand is ambiguity, conflict, and the last is interpersonal demand include group pressure, leadership style, and the personalities. Life stressors is it can be include life trauma and life change. So individual consequences is behavioral, alcohol and drug abuse, violence, and the psychological is sleep disturbance and depression. Medical is heart disease and headache. Task demands are the stressor associated with the specific job of a person performs. The top most stressful jobs. Number one is surgeon. Number two is commercial airplane pilot. Number three is photojournalist. Number four is advertising account executive. Number five is real estate agent. Number seven is physician, and number eight is reporter newspaper, and the last is physician assistant. Top list stressful job. Number one is actuary, dietitian, computer system analysis, statistician, astronomer, mathematician, historian, and software engineer. Physical demand is a job or are its physical requirement on the worker, while role demand is can also be stressful to people in organization. Interpersonal demand is the final set of organization stressors consists of three interpersonal demands. The one is group pressure, number two is leadership, and the last is interpersonal conflict. That's all. This is Lilette Villar.
Good day everyone, this is Jisha Magbanwa. So for today, I will be reporting about the continuation of the common causes of stress. So there are two broad categories of many things that can cause stress. These are organizational stressors and life stressors. Since the previous reporter explained about organizational stressors, I will talk about life stressors. So, stress in organizational setting can also be influenced by the events that take place outside the organization. So there are two categories of life stressors. These are life change and life trauma. When we talk about life change, it is any meaningful change in person's personal or work situation. According to the psychiatrists Thomas Holmes and Richard Rahay, reason that major change in a person's life can lead to stress and eventually to disease. Each event's points value reflects to the event's impact on the individual. For example, is the death of spouse. This is the most traumatic event considered. This sum of cumulative impact of various stressors and underscore our limitations in coping with stressful events. So, the next category of life stressors is life trauma. So, it is any upheaval in individual's life that alters his or her attitudes, emotions, or behavior. Life trauma is similar to life change, but it has a narrower, more direct, and shorter-term focus. Major life traumas that may cause stress include marital problem, family difficulties, and health problem. For example, suppose a person learns she has developed arthritis that will limit her favorite activity, which is skiing. Her dismay over the news may translate into stress at work, which will affect her job performance. So, let's move on to the consequences of stress. Stress can have a number of consequences. If the stress is positive, the result may be more energy, enthusiasm, and motivation. Of more concern, of course, are the negative consequences of stress. Stress can produce individual consequences, organizational consequences, and burnout. So, the individual consequences of stress then are the outcomes that mainly affect the individual. The organization also may suffer, either direct or indirect, but it is the individual who pays the real price. Stress may produce behavioral, psychological, and medical consequences. So first, let's talk about behavioral consequences. So, behavioral consequences of stress may harm the person under stress or other. One such behavior is smoking. According to the research, people who smoke tend to smoke more when they are experiencing stress. So the next one is psychological consequences. The psychological consequences of stress relate to a person's mental health and well-being. When people experience too much stress at work, they may become depressed or find themselves sleeping too much or not enough. Stress may also lead to family problems and sexual difficulties. The next one is medical consequences. The medical consequences of stress affect a person's physical well-being. Heart disease and stroke, among other illnesses, have been linked to stress. Other common medical problems resulting from too much stress include headaches, backaches, ulcers and related stomach and intestinal disorders, and skin conditions such as acne. The second consequences of stress is organizational consequences. Other results of stress have even more direct consequences for organization. So these include decline in performance, withdrawal, and negative changes in attitudes. One clear organizational consequences of too much stress is decline in performance. For operating workers, such a decline can translate into poor quality work or drop in productivity. And for managers, it can mean faulty decision making or disruptions in working relationships as people become irritable and hard to get along with. Withdrawal. The most significant forms of withdrawal behavior are absenteeism and quitting. People who are having a hard time coping with stress in their jobs are more likely to call in sick or leaving the organization for good. An employee may withdraw psychologically by ceasing to care about the organization and the job. Attitude. Stress can have a negative effect on job satisfaction, morale, organizational commitment, and motivational to perform at high levels. As a result, people may be more prone to complain about unimportant things, do only enough work to get by, and so forth. Burnout is a general feeling of exhaustion that develops when an individual simultaneously experiences too much pressure and has too few sources of satisfaction. People with high aspirations and strong motivation to get things done are prime candidates for burnout under certain conditions. They are especially vulnerable when the organization suppresses or limits their initiative with constantly demanding that they serve the organization's own ends. So in this situation, the individual is likely to put too much of himself or herself into the job. In other words, the person may well keep trying to meet his or her own agenda while simultaneously trying to fulfill the organization's expectation. The most likely effects of these situations are prolonged stress, fatigue, frustration, and helplessness under the burden of overwhelming demands. Loss of self-confidence and psychological withdrawal follow. Ultimately, burnout may be the result. So that will be all. Thank you. Keep safe, everyone.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I am the next reporter. So my task here is managing stress in the workplace. So, given that stress is widespread and so potentially disrupted, and organizations should be concerned about how to manage it more effectively. Many strategies have been developed to help manage stress in the workplace. Some are for individuals and others are geared toward organizations. So, there are different strategies that are recommended by experts and several institutional and collateral organizational programs that can help you in managing stress. Okay, so individual coping strategies. Just an individual and organizational factors can cause stress. There are individual and organizational strategies for coping with stress. Many strategies for helping individuals manage stress have been proposed. This strategy helps people get more important things every day. It also encourages delegation of less important activities to others. So there are 5 methods of individual coping strategies. So these strategies helps many individuals in managing the stress. First is the exercise. Exercise is one of method managing stress Research suggested that people who exercise regularly are less likely to have heart attacks than inactive people, feel less tension and stress, more self-confident, and show greater optimism. People who do not exercise regularly feel more stressed, are more likely to be depressed, and experience other negative consequences. This one-off methods makes you active and less likely to be depressed and think negativity. It can distract the bad happenings and experiences in your life. So that is the exercise. And the second is the relaxation. So relaxation is an effective method for coping with stress. Taking vacations, balancing work and non-work activities, and getting full night's sleep are often recommended approaches to managing stress. So, relaxation, method that helps you in managing stress. For you, you can relax and rest through vacations away from things or people who can lead you to be stressed or depressed. In our life, rest and relaxation is important for us to think effectively and positively. So, the third one is the time management. Time management. This is often recommended for managing stress. The idea is many daily pressures can be eased or eliminated if a person does a better job of managing time. One popular approach to time management is to make lists every morning of the things to be done. Then group the items of the list into 3 categories. First, critical activities that must be performed. Second, important activities that should be performed. And last, an optional or trivia things that can be delegated. So, this method is very important in managing stress. For without managing time, it may be lead you to stress or stressing yourself out on your work or problems. In time management, you have to prioritize important things and give an allotted time to those things that is important to avoid in stressing yourself. So that is the time management. And the fourth one is the role management. Role management, somewhat related to time management, is the idea of the management, in which the individual actively works to avoid overload, ambiguity, and conflict. So the role management is the second to time management. In doing our work, sometimes if we can do it or dili na gyud kaya nun Japon. But sometimes we can say no, avoid ourselves in being stressed. So that's true. And the last one is the support groups. The support groups, the final method for managing stress, to develop and maintain and support groups. It is simply a group of family members or friends with whom a person can spend time. Going out with a couple of coworkers can help relieve the stress that builds up during the day. It helps people deal with normal stress on an ongoing basis. So, the support groups, this helps you in managing stress. If you feel and see yourself down, or go be with the people whom you trust and think that you can lean on. Go to the people who cheer you up if you feel down, and most importantly, pray to God. So, with the methods that is shown you, you can manage your stress and avoid being stressed. So, that would be all my report. Once again, good afternoon and thank you.
Organizational coping strategies. Organizations are also increasingly realizing that they involved in managing their employees' stress. So there are two different rationales for this view. One is that because the organization is at least partly responsible for creating stress, it should help relieve it. And the other is that workers experiencing lower levels of harmful stress will function more effectively. The two basic organizational strategies for helping employees manage stress are constitutional programs and collateral programs. Institutional programs for managing stress are undertaken through established organizational mechanism. Collateral programs, a collateral stress program is an organizational program specially created to help employees deal with stress. Fundamental work life. Work life relationships can be characterized in any numbers of ways. Consider, for example, the basic dimensions of the part of a person's life tied especially to work. Common dimensions would include such things as an individual. For example, including work, working hours, job satisfaction, and so forth. Work-life relationship include any relationship between dimensions of the person's personal life. And stress occur when there is a basic inconsistency or incompatibility between person's work and life dimension. Balancing work-life linkages is of course no easy thing to do. Demands from both sides can be extreme, and people may need to be prepared to make trade-offs in advance so that they can be carefully weighed and comfortable decision made. Next is synopsis. Stress is a person's adaptive response to stimuli that places excessive psychological or physical demands on that person. According to the General Adaptation Syndrome perspective, the three stages of response to stress are alarm, 2, resistance, and 3 is exhaustions. The two important forms of stress, one is eustress, 2 is distress.